Oh, hey there.
Hi.
How you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Good. Let's see. I think our names are kind of covering up our video feed.
Is it letting? I want to be able to share my screen if I need to.
Yeah, I
Oh,
can
there
turn
it
it on.
is. Okay. Great.
Oh, this is cool.
How do I prioritize this?
The screen share.
Yeah.
Do you see over in the right-hand corner, there's like 3 bubbles. Do you get that? I'm not sure what your interface looks like. I can turn it on. I can like click it.
Okay.
I don't know if you can control it. Maybe I can make you like co-host here. Let's see. I think Jennifer's on her way. So you're heading to a conference in August, right? Is that your next one? Is it Serious
Yep.
Play?
It is.
Have you done that before?
No.
Oh, I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
I've heard great things.
Yeah. I have no idea what to expect. So, um, Adam Watson's wife's funeral is today. So, I've kind of like just backed off from talking to him about it until that's done, and then we'll sort of pull ourselves together, I think.
Yeah, wow. And
So
we are live right now, by the way.
yeah, okay,
That's all public information, but it was just letting you
yeah.
know.
So we're people first.
For sure. Yeah, unbelievable. I had no idea he was going through all that.
Yep. She seemed like she was really an amazing human.
Yeah.
Hi.
Jennifer,
I'm about to
welcome.
have a very unusual. Hi, Jennifer. I'm about to have a very unusual situation where I think that everyone in my house except me will be gone for a
Oh,
period.
heavens.
So,
That is very exciting.
and a very unusual.
All right, folks. Well, I'm gonna. Do you guys want to just rock it here?
I mean, I feel fine about that.
Oop, I lost my.
Sage now. Oh, there I am.
There you are. I'm gonna turn.
We're messing around with the
Okay.
settings.
Oh my god, I look like Kathy Bates in Misery.
How's it going?
Great. I'm officially it's officially summer.
Yay.
Today was the last
Good.
day of theater camp. All
She's
of the
fine.
theater camps are done.
Yay.
So
Jennifer just came online, so I'm in a meeting now. So have a good time at work, my love.
what is happening?
Just a very tiny baby.
Yeah.
So just gonna meet a very tiny baby. I want to figure out. All right.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yeah,
Um,
I can.
Did you just add that in?
Your
Garrett?
your your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that something you're going to be doing?
I think I have to do it right now. I think there's a different way
yeah,
to set it
I
up.
can't move anything.
Okay. Yeah, I think you
Okay.
guys are guests. Um, but just give me a shout and I can turn it on.
Okay. I pulled up our article, Jennifer, and I pulled up our presentation from Origins.
Great.
Either of those things.
Well, looks like we have 5 people tuning in, which is exciting. We're about to hit 12:30. Oh, there's 8. Very cool. People are starting to come in. This is a fun experiment. Thank you guys for doing this today. This allows me to kind of focus on the tech while we try something new. But yeah, I'll step back. Welcome to Fellowship Friday. Happy Friday. This is our little talk show where we get into everything role play games and learning. It's the only space I know of online where people are regularly talking about role play games and learning, especially live. Who does that? So, welcome. And we're not just recording this, we want to interact with you guys. So, if you have a question, drop it in the chat box on YouTube or LinkedIn or Discord. We're going to try to get to it. Yeah. And today I'm just gonna hand it over to Marianne and Jennifer, who you guys know well. So let me hand it right over to you folks to talk about gaming the system.
So, hello everyone. I'm happy to see you. So, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Marianne Cullinan. I'm the other half of Tabletop EDU, and I am a middle school teacher and a TTRPG researcher with the divine Miss Genova, who I'm about to introduce, general cat herder. And so you don't see me on these as much because I'm often teaching school. But today I am on summer vacation, although I am working 4 days a week, not on Fridays. So you'll be seeing more of me in the next few weeks. And I'm here with the third half of my research brain and dear, dear friend, Jennifer Genova. So take it away, Jennifer. Why don't you introduce yourself and let us know who you are?
Alrighty. Hey, everyone out there in like every platform Everland. As Marianne said, my name is Jennifer Genova. I am also a middle school teacher, cat herder, and researcher, and also newly minted director of a nonprofit called Gaming the Systems with Marianne, and Garrett also hangs out in that world. So yeah, I'm excited to be here today talking about using games in education and how to figure out a game that is going to meet the needs of your particular situation.
Yeah, so I think that what Jennifer and I have in this space together that a lot of people don't have is we're both still in the classroom. And so we are working with actual children all of the time, not just theoretical children. And probably, oh gosh, well, almost 5 years ago now, we started we had a whole summer with some friends who were educators and therapists and just sort of thinkers. And we wanted to try lots of different game systems that were not D20 based because we really only had experience with the dragon game. And
Mm-hmm.
we knew Dungeons and Dragons is not now, and this can be sacrilegious, so I hope you're sitting down, that great for the classroom because it hasn't so much of its own gravitas, right? In a classroom setting, I can't spend a week teaching you how to be a warlock when I only have a week to spend on the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
So we were like, well, the question we were asking ourselves is, how do we know if games are good for learning? And we tried all sorts of different kinds of games and found some great ones. But what we discovered is we were not, in fact, asking the right question because the question wasn't specific enough. Lots of games are good for lots of learning, but the question is, what is the learning that you're trying to do? And then is this game appropriate for that learning?
Yeah. I just remember we were sitting there, and I think there's nothing as a researcher that is both as exciting and invigorating and demoralizing as realizing that you have dedicated hours of planning and thinking and writing and researching to step 11 of a process for which you have not completed steps 1 through 10. But I do think that it is that has allowed us to kind of be where we are and participate in this awesome growing field of research and also this growing community of practitioners. But yeah, we were really focused on trying to figure out like what does everybody mean by good for a classroom or a therapy situation.
Well, and one of the problems is, and this is a huge problem, I think, many of us had these really formative experiences with gameplay at some point. And Jennifer and I are actually relatively recent to role playing games in our lives. We didn't have these formative experiences with them at a middle school, but because we were like girls in the 90s and we became theater kids instead. But ultimately, like, TTRPGs are long form improv, so it all kind of comes together. But people have these formative experiences and these community experiences with learning and reading and math and collaborative storytelling and thinking and problem solving. And we know this in our guts, but there's a growing but small body of research that sort of backs that up. And when you want to go into a classroom setting, you need to do things that are quote unquote research based. That's
Right.
what we're really into right now. So if you build it, they will come. So what did we do,
Yeah.
Jennifer?
So I think, well, to sort of back up a little bit too, I think it's really hard also. There's a lot of noise in this space too, because we at the beginning and we are growing it now, there wasn't that sort of shared vocabulary and understanding. And so one of the people that does curriculum work with my department in my district talks about backing something into the standard where like you really want to do the castle moat project, and so you kind of cherry pick a bunch of things and stick it on a rubric to justify doing that. And if you look at a lot of the work with bringing a lot of role-playing games into the classroom, especially with that game that we shall not name specifically, a lot of it is like, hey, this is a really fun and enjoyable experience, but are we sort of Rube Goldberging our standards and skills and learning goals to this thing that we wanted to do, or did we pick a thing to do with those skills and goals in mind? And so one of the things that
100%. I just want to underline what you're saying here, because ultimately, like, form has to follow function, right?
Yes.
I have to choose to do a role-playing game with kids because it's the best choice.
Yes.
Right? Not just because I want to do it, right? I can play that game on Friday nights with my friends. But the reason I want to do it is because I know there's like a magic sauce, right? The secret sauce of role-playing games. So I need to figure out like what that is, and then how can I get that to also meet the academic standards that my students are being tested on.
Yes.
And I am like legally required to do. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
Yeah. So what we kind of figured was actually step one was, before we even got to systems, thinking about what elements of games, any kind of game, support development of specific skills. And obviously, right, like I'm a history teacher, and I'm sure if any of you out there in multiple platform land are history teachers, we could produce a 47 volume encyclopedia on just the skills for the discipline of history. So we kind of figured that at some point we had to cap it so that we had an amount of stuff to talk about that was reasonable. So we pulled out academic skills and some broad categories in there, executive functioning skills and social emotional skills, and pulled out the categories within those categories that would speak to a lot of teaching and also some work in counseling. So we had literacy, numeracy, written communication, oral communication, talking about like sequencing, materials management, self regulation, communication, problem solving, compromise, all of those things. And we looked at games that we had played before, but we also just sort of sat and were like, okay, what kinds of games, board games, role playing games, etc., support what can you do in a game setting that will support those skills? So one of the
I
things
happen
that
to have, if I can figure out how to screen share here, a picture about this.
we love a screen share and a picture.
Do you want me to share part of the article, or do you want me to share it from the Canva?
I think if we look at the matrix,
Yeah.
like
Okay,
that
great.
will be helpful because I feel like
So, Cabana Boy, yes, here it is. Our matrix, and I can either so here's sort of the spoiler alert is that we ended up writing um an article in the International Journal
yes.
of Role Playing, which is an open source journal that all of you can use. It is peer reviewed. It's in an academic journal, so it starts to be. We're trying to build this research base, and so I am going to zoom it in, but here's the sort of overall kind of idea, and then we will zoom into a part of it because I know it's sort of hard to see, and I apologize for that. So hopefully it will be better zoomed in here for you. And there it is. So I'm kind of messing around with a couple tabs at once, so I apologize if it takes me a second. So here's our conceptual matrix. And for each one, we thought of structural, material, and contextual elements that are going to be important for a game. Do you want to talk about those, Jennifer?
Yeah. So we were kind of thinking about like the different, if you think about like levels of a game, if you imagine, I'm a person of extended metaphors. So if you imagine like the bottom level is what is the stuff that comes with the game. Now, when we think about, say, for example, the game Monopoly, right? The game Monopoly is about people buying and selling property to try and have more money than other people. The rules, the way that the game tells you to play without any sort of homebrewing or hacking or retooling. The material elements is like, okay, in order to interact with that box of stuff, what does the player have to know and be able to do and have experience with beforehand, right?
So like if you have no concept of money,
right,
you're not going to be able to play this. It would be
right,
helpful for you to have some understanding of buying and selling real estate. It would be helpful for you to know how to do turn taking, right? And how
yes,
to sort of hold on to all of the material components of the game.
right.
You need to be able to
Some
read.
level of like math confidence, you know
Yeah,
what I
you need to be able
mean?
to read cards, right?
Right.
So when we say material elements, we mean both actual physical elements and then conceptual elements.
Yeah. If you imagine it's like the bag of stuff, both like experiential, physical, and cognitive that you have to have at your disposal in order to interact with those materials. And then the last part is contextual elements. And that's like, what are the hard limits? What is the box or the room in which play will take place? So the contextual considerations, I have a class of 25 honors and advanced place high school juniors, is very different than the context of like, I have a bunch of fifth graders who needs support with executive functioning. So, and also I have 90-minute block scheduled classes versus I have 45-minute classes. The things that put a hard limit on what you are able to play, how much you are able to get through in a play session, and how hard can setup be, how hard can takedown be, etc.
Right. So,
And background information is huge. As a history teacher who looks at a lot of history games, background information is a huge consideration.
and what we sort of realized as we talked about this is that there are really different kinds of games. I mean, this is like a no-brainer when you actually think about it, but different kind of games are going to do different things, right? So if we're going to go down here, I want to look at this like reading comprehension one. And so what if I'm working on reading comprehension, then I'm going to really want to have the kids spend a lot of time reading. Right? And so thinking about the rules are going to need to be at a reading level appropriate for my students. And I'm going to need to have things in the game that require them to show reading skills. Otherwise, I'm not actually teaching the thing I need, right?
Right.
And in that way, lots of reading. And I might give them copies of readings, right? That's part of what I'm going to need to do if they're going to need to hold these things in their head and do these things together. And then I need to sort of zoom out and say, well, do we understand how to find vocabulary? What kinds of texts am I going to need? And that, if I'm doing that, might be really, really different than if I'm teaching a pre-algebra class and trying to do a role-playing game with that. In that case, there might be very little reading because in that case, I want them to mostly focus on math.
Yeah, when we talk about this we give a lot of talks, one of the things that we come back to is thinking about what is the cognitive load of the player for the bulk of their time in the game. So I love the game Civilization, to get to a video game. I love the game Civilization. I have played more hours of Civ than I should probably admit in a public setting, lest some of you become concerned for my well-being. I love Civ. I'm a history teacher. Civ is not a history game. It just isn't. It is a game with really well done history theming. It is a game with really intricate references to history that people have researched a lot. And there's a lot of great joy that I can take as a student of history from playing Civ. But the bulk of your time as a player is strategic unit and tile placement, really. So if all of a sudden I woke up tomorrow and everything in Civ in my Steam was named something different and a different paragraph came up and it was about the war for the planet Zoltar or whatever, it would not change my experience of the game. Therefore, it's not really doing history. So when we think of the Dragon game, a lot of people, I was just listening to an actual play podcast on the way home. A lot of people have done incredible storytelling work, taking D&D and using it as a vehicle to tell really intricate stories that demand a lot of players cognitively, a lot of players through communication and problem solving, etc. If you look at the core book, the way that it is written out of the box, the vast majority of what players are doing during their time is engaging in combat mechanics. Now, you might have a group of kids that every Friday they need help with quick math and confidence with quick math. Maybe doing something like that can then have some value. Or you have a group of students that need to work on planning ahead, planning out something and then doing it. That could be useful if if you take a crawl through a dungeon and you say, hey, I'm going to cast Thunderwave, and people are like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Sure. But like, as a history teacher, the amount of extra stuff that I would have to put into that game, it becomes like the TTRPG of Theseus, right? Like, if you've hacked the thing to bits in order to make it work, is that thing the best use of your students' time to use that skill? And so when we made this matrix, we wanted not only for it to be a way for people to think of their own games, but also a way for people to evaluate an existing game for like, what are the core mechanics of this that are going to support what I need, and what theming or framing device can I craft to direct that toward the learning that I need to have in my classroom.
Right. Originally, part of why a big reason why we started this was because I wanted to have a lot more experience with lots of different kinds of games, because I originally thought that my PhD work would be about sort of crafting a system that could be used in a classroom setting. But what I feel like we've really discovered over the past few years is it's so much more nuanced than that. And right, different depending on what you need or what your students need and what their situation is, it really, really depends what kinds of mechanics are going to be best, because most of the time they need to be doing the thing that you are asking them to learn, right? That time on task. There's some really fun, I'm seeing a discussion with in the chat, just with people talking about D&D. I would really highly recommend looking at other systems too. And some of you are saying you do sort of a combination of a lot of systems, and that's really great. There are lots of systems that sort of lean into various aspects of what we're talking about. And so depending on your setting, you really want to do that. You know, a really good example of what Jennifer was talking about is a card game called Zeus on the Loose. And people give me this game constantly because I teach Greek mythology. And it is not actually a Greek mythology game. It has Greek mythology, pictures of Greek mythology in it, right? And you're trying to get Zeus, but the mechanic is quick adding and subtracting. And so when I use this game, I use it when I teach remedial math. And they're like, you love Greek mythology. And it's like, yeah, I do love Greek mythology. But the reason I'm using it, it could be flavored anything.
Yes.
And the core mechanics of trying to add and subtract up to 100 strategically as quickly as possible, remains the same. I'm noticing there's also some conversation in the chat that's a little bit about setting expectations and boundaries. Friends, we are not going to talk about session 0 today because that is not the scope of this, but we would highly, highly, highly recommend that if you are using role-playing games with students in any setting, or anyone ever in your entire life, that you you Google session 0, you talk about, there's a great consent toolbox out there by Monty Cook and the gang, and it's like an incredible, there is incredible social learning to be done by not only keeping people safe in terms of content, but also there's an incredible amount of social learning that can happen just by making some of our implicit social rules explicit through session 0 and consent tools. So another time we'll come back to talk about that, because it's really fabulous.
Maybe another Fellowship Friday needs to be like classroom adaptations of safety tools.
I love that.
And norms. Then I can shoehorn a conversation about Arium Create.
Our favorite. So ultimately, what it's come down to is really being thoughtful. In
Mm-hmm.
Instead of sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, we're hoping that you can use the matrix that we've created to help you evaluate the tools you're using right now. Are they doing the things you're hoping they're doing? Or in the sort of eventuality that you end up creating your own TTRPG systems, um, that you can really sort of check yourself and make sure that you're doing the things that you are meant to do. And it's also very useful if you're talking to non game playing kind of normie admins to be able to say, well, we're doing collaborative storytelling that is group work centered, and they're spending a massive amount of time on task doing these skills, and here's how I did that. So that
Mm-hmm.
you have language to talk to your administrators and co-teachers about, that isn't just games are fun and everyone likes them, because we already know that. But
Yeah.
we need to be able to speak the language that our colleagues need, and also be really clear in our own heads about why using a TTRPG in this setting is the most appropriate pedagogical tool.
Yes. For sure.
I'm wondering if we have questions. I'm seeing in the chat that Garrett put the link to our Gaming the Systems uh, Matrix article, which is awesome. And we can maybe put that up there again into the chat. But I'm wondering if there are questions or or thoughts. Jenna is saying that they're using the Matrix to evaluate game mechanics from board games. Yeah, to isolate a mechanic for planning learning activities. Absolutely. This
Mm-hmm.
is also, you can also use this with really any kind of game. We wanted this to be something that was going to be useful for teachers in lots of settings. So that's really
Yes.
cool. I'm glad to hear that. One of
Ooh.
Sorry. Oh, I'm just dropping in. Hey guys, I was just jumping in here at the last 5 minutes, and I wanted to piggyback on that and say I'm
Great.
putting the link to our Discord community in
Oh,
the feed
yeah.
as well, where we've got a lot of these your paper and many other things kind of pinned there for people to find.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're also in that Discord, and
Yes.
to sort of varying amounts. But you can ping either of us on Discord at any time, and we're generally kind of around.
I will
This is
talk shop for forever
the
about
rest of my
anything
life. Yeah. Um,
for the rest of time.
I don't know, because we're using a new platform here, Garrett. I'm not 100% sure how to add myself into the chat. Um, so
Oh,
could
for you to chat. Do
yeah,
you have a
would
sidebar?
you
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
do. It's
I can
showing,
see the chat. I
but we
can't
can't
type in it.
participate in it.
Ah,
Would you
okay.
mind, please, just adding our Discord handles into the chat?
Oh, sure. Let me do that. That'll take me a minute to grab those.
We're not going to kid you. If you choose to use a role playing game or any kind of game in your classroom, it does take a lot of thinking and a lot of setup.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very hopeful that this matrix can be useful to you in terms of helping you keep your thinking on track and not getting like lost in the weeds of spending a lot of time building something that either isn't doing what you want it to do or isn't going to be applicable in many settings. And so we really are hopeful that it can be helpful to you. And we're here anytime in the Discord. I'm just sort of around on social media to do
Yeah.
that co-thinking with you. We're happy to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that, especially now, ed tech is having like a AI sort of renaissance, like, I feel like we've run the gamut on all of the like, you have a one-to-one Chromebooks. So now we're like in the AI world. So part of our purpose with this matrix is also to give you and give teachers and practitioners a sales pitch agnostic foundation of how to look at these things and tools critically and think about like what are your kids doing most of the time and does that fit your goals, because we've talked about this a lot, the three of us in our off time, which is just talking shop, sitting around a living room instead of on a stream. But thinking about like there are a lot of things that are very shiny and will purport to do all of these things. And it's good, I think, for teachers and for therapists to have their own way of looking at a tool, a game, or it could be like anything. I mean, you can apply the matrix to like a simulation in a class or anything like that, right? And look at it and be like, they're going to spend most of their time clicking on a website that's actually like not going to do what I want it to do.
Jennifer, we're getting asked the question, do you think reskinning a game is better than facilitating a game that comes close to learning targets but requires additional instruction? So
Ooh.
I have some thoughts about this. Do you mind if I go first?
Oh my God, please do.
So I think it really depends, right? I wish there was like a yes or a no on this, but I think it really depends. If I'm teaching a concept or content that I'm going to be doing very briefly, over the course of say a week or something, then I want to spend, right, if I have a week to teach the Industrial Revolution, I cannot spend 3 of those days teaching you the game about how to learn about the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution deserves more than 5 45-minute blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So in that kind of case, I would say down and dirty, as easy as possible, micro RPG, the simplest rules possible. Let's get in and get into that content as quickly as we can. If it's going to be a game that we're coming back to over and over again over the course of the year or the semester or the quarter, then it's well worth it to spend a little bit more time. It's that concept of like go slow to go fast, right? Where we spend a lot of these first few days and weeks of the year like teaching the routines and the norms that we want for the whole year, right? So I think that is all really, really important. A lot of the times I find that, commercial off the shelf games don't necessarily meet the exact standards that I need. So I end up having to sort of recreate what I'm doing anyway, especially if it's a game that takes a lot of, like a board game with a lot of pieces, because I teach middle school and someone will eat them, throw them, or lose them pretty much immediately. I hope that that's like a helpful answer. What are you thinking, Jennifer?
So for me, I definitely agree. I try to think about like how much time am I going to have to spend onboarding the children to the game?
Yeah.
So if it's a game with a mechanic that a large number of them are going to know, so like a lot of them know like go fish. So if I can take something that is based around the concept of go fish, great. That's easy. I can onboard them for that. If I'm going to be doing like a more elaborate role playing game, it needs to be something that I can come back to multiple times throughout the year after they've learned it once. I will also say, for a lot of commercial off the shelf games, and you're talking to a girl who has shall we say, a not insignificant collection of them, as a history teacher, and we don't have enough time for me to go into how long I want to talk about this, but you have to be extremely, extremely careful about how history is depicted in commercial properties, especially like with theming. I tend to stay away from the vast majority of history games for a wide variety of reasons that I promise I won't get into right now. You have to be really thoughtful about the responsibility, like how responsibly portrayed is that. Um, I often, if something has like really simple mechanics, I might reskin it 10 different ways throughout the year because I just get more bang for my buck. I do think that generally speaking, simpler is going to be better. Um, and I wish I could give you like a yes, it's always better to reskin. No, always go for something you're going to have to teach more of. There are some games though that like the process of learning the game is part of the learning in and of itself,
Yeah.
which can be really valuable. And
Well,
there are some times where like I try to very strategically blend a lot of like opportunities for my students to practice like complicated social skills. So sometimes I will put my kids in front of something that I know is very new to them. And the process of getting them into the game is part of the learning is flexible thinking, iteration, learning to deal with failure, all of that stuff. So it kind of depends. It also depends on your group of kids. Like,
Jennifer,
yeah.
In the chat, D20 coach just said, suggested, ready? Roll for shoes.
Oh my God. I love Roll for Shoes so much.
Jennifer loves Roll for Shoes. I've been laughing the whole time to myself that she's been talking. I'm like, she's going to love this.
Oh, we got to play it in Discord.
Yeah, for sure.
I
I
haven't
haven't
played
played
that
it
one.
either.
So there are like 3 games that I desperately want to play with our various communities between gaming the systems and this. Yes, I got Rebel Scum, the polymorph game.
Yeah.
I'm pumped for that. And
Our
also
friend Bug wrote that one that you just put up there.
Bug, light of my
Sentai
days.
and
I
sensibility.
also want very desperately to run. So I have to say, one game that I would highly recommend anybody check out for use in a classroom, especially if you're working with student dungeon masters, is a game called Arium Create. It's by Adept Icarus. It's one of the ones that I really want to run. And that is an example of a game that like I would absolutely invest the time in having the kids learn how to do it, because what it's really about is it's about structuring a process of collaborating when people may have different ideas and different wants and needs. That's what it is.
What's the game called, Jennifer?
Arium Create. ARIUM Create. I promise I am not affiliated with them yet, but I'm trying. And
I'm selling over here. We're selling.
I'm not. This is hashtag not an ad. I don't know how to do social media, man. I just turned 40. I don't know. But it's one of those games that I would absolutely invest the time in to have the kids really go through the steps, fail, have to fix it, have to go back. Maybe I have to change my schedule around a little bit because what it asks them to do is really valuable. As much as I love Urban Shadows, I would not dedicate that time to having the kids learn Urban Shadows.
Well, and so that
unless
right. I'm looking at the time here, and so I want to wrap it up, but I want to say like this brings us back to this idea of the matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
What Jennifer's saying is, if I'm hearing you correctly, Jennifer, is that not only are you working on academic content, but what you're trying to do as an educator is teach these complex social skills, right? And one of the ones that I'm really trying to teach all of the time is, and I know Jennifer is too, but is these executive functioning skills. So I have like a Greek mythology game where you have to keep track of little cards. And when you don't, your patron god gets mad at you. And that's in there on purpose. I could totally make it easier, but I'm not, because I want them to have to practice that and feel the wrath of the gods if they don't, right? And so again, it sort of brings us back to this concept of this matrix and really being thoughtful about is the form of this game providing learning for the functions that you're wanting it to do, right? So, and that is the secret sauce, partially, of a role playing game is
Yes.
that you're adding this additional layer of getting these concepts and this learning that goes beyond just the content, although it also has
Yes.
to have the content.
And I mean, that was the thing I wanted to say was I often try to me, the role play game, like a rules light role play game, a narrative where we can create a shared kind of fiction and narrative
Mm-hmm.
where students have an opportunity to create a character that's situated within a context where the learning is relevant and interesting and useful, right? Situated cognition, situated learning. And then we can create scenarios which are essentially story problems, right? But they're interesting and they're articulated to these fantastical characters and stuff that the students invested in. Then you can really create all kinds of different problems without having to bring in a hodgepodge of different games or teach a bunch of different mechanics. And so I mean, there's so many ways to do this. You can do this where you're picking discrete games that really teach a particular skill or mindset or subset or something. But my approach is generally working within a kind of a rich scenario role play system. And to me, that's why a role play game is the ultimate game. And it is a little closer to play than a game, right? A rules light
Sure.
role play system is is more of a play system and less of a kind of like chess or a pandemic that's kind of got these like interesting interacting systems that teach certain maths and reactions and so forth.
Well, there are so many really super rad indie systems out there that have all sorts of really fabulous and entertaining and interesting mechanics, right? So, I'm a super big fan of Lighthouse at the End of the World by Bannerless Games, and that's all playing cards in a Jenga tower,
Yeah.
right? And so there's all sorts of ways that you can think about adding an element of randomness to it.
Yes.
Um, you know, I I want to honor everyone's time, and so I want to maybe end with a comment that Ian Greener just put in, which is a
Oh,
possibly radical claim. A well designed game in a classroom is more interesting and useful pedagogically than most of the standard teaching methods. And,
love
right?
it. Love it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you're not getting pushback from this crowd.
Yeah.
Nope.
Preach.
So yeah,
Preach.
um, it's been super fun to talk to you, Jennifer, and you as well, Garrett, as always.
Thanks
Uh,
for letting me play along, guys.
Oh,
it's
yeah, of course.
so we hope that you will go check out our Matrix. We have a couple other things sort of floating around the academosphere and internet, and lots of things with tabletop edu and some upcoming things hopefully soon with gaming the systems, like some of our own recommendations and things that we do. So Garrett, we'll let you wrap it up and bring us into what's happening next week.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer and Marianne, for coming on and chatting. This is what makes it fun. I think having different people and we're gonna do some more rotating hosts for the show this year as we kind of ramp up. Yeah, what's happening next week? Rachel Cowart from the DLC Digital Leadership Council or Coalition is coming on, and Marianne is interviewing her and talking about her really great work in doing training for people who facilitate and manage digital communities. And so it's a much bigger effort than just tabletop role play games. It's a lot of video games, a lot of money behind it, as I understand it, grants and so forth, to create more positive and safe spaces without the bullying and without all this kind of toxicity. How do we do that? And so they've developed a training program for folks, and that cohort is open. So if you manage, they're accepting applications. So if you want to go through that program, and she'll be talking about it more in depth, but if you're in those spaces, come check it out. Really important part of that conversation about safety we were having earlier, which is vital for learning. This is a thing I like to talk about when we talk about session zero and stuff. Like, this is how you get students to relax, and this is how you get the stress and anxiety to go away. And now they can actually think more long term and think about what's important here and so forth. So it is a really important aspect of the whole equation. So Rachel Colwert next week, Marianne's hosting. Our book project, Adventures in the Stacks, is picking up a little heat. I dropped the link in the chat. It's on BackerKit. We just are working on signing. We just got the final details on a contract from BackerKit to get a partnership for doing some ads. So they're going to help us out with that, which is amazing. So it's a really cool project with a bunch of great librarians and researchers and educators helping to write it. And it's piggybacking off some work from the IMLS, Institute of Museum and Library Studies, who's spending about $250,000 to study TTRPGs in libraries around the country. And they're interviewing librarians who are doing it and figuring out what are the barriers, how do we do this well. And so we have some folks who are on that grant helping to author some chapters in the book to help us kind of build modules that are easy to pick up and run in libraries.
And I don't think we mentioned the whole time, but Garrett and I also wrote a book, and Jennifer was part of it, that we did. That is called Adventures in Teaching and Learning with TTRPGs, that has some of these concepts in it too.
Yeah, you're not this paper, right? But the CATS framework, are those, this isn't CATS, this is a separate,
No, but this is, but we have a lot of the same kind of thoughts. I mean, it's the same people. So we have the same sort of way of thinking about the world. But yeah, we really encourage you to look at that. Look at this new thing we're kind of doing. Come back and talk with Rachel and I. Hit us up on Discord.
Yeah.
Come
we really, we adventure in parties.
I want to play, so we're going to run some polymorph. I'm going to set up some dates over the next 2 weeks where I'm going to run, what was the one that won? Business Wizards won our community poll. So I'm going to run a little business wizard, which I'm trying to warm up to, and which people describe as Office Space plus Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a little absurd, but it's one of those that you could bring into almost any office, any like corporate work environment, and you could get normies to play with you, I think. And you'd have a good time over like a lunch session. And that's what's great about polymorph is you can pick it up in just a second. It's so rules light that it's really beginner friendly. So that's why we're playing with that. Anyway, we could keep going and going and going, but we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys in Discord. Thank you again, Marianne and Jennifer.